Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. We are back for our first episode of 2022, coming hot off of a great year of anime last year, and even last season I think was pretty solid. And
we're gonna keep the streak going.
Well, so it seems the monkey's paw has curled here.
Combo breaker.
This is where you write your like old timey 1800s letter. That's like it was the year 2022 winter season. The anime crops were not good early on this year.
I'm writing back to my wife.
Yeah.
From the Anime Wars.
Yeah,
I'm writing back to my wife.
To my dearest beloved, I regret to inform you.
Despite my journey to the golden plains of California, I have failed to find any gold of significant amount.
The 2022 anime mines have turned up empty.
See, this is unrealistic because you just said 5 lines without saying anything racist, so...
Also, I have quite a screen here to say about the Jews and the blacks and the
Okay.
Cheap cartoons from the Orient.
Let's cut that one off and move things along. Nevertheless, it is our...
I was inhabiting a bit, it's fine.
Yes. Nevertheless, let us carry out our journalistic duty in talking about the Winter 2022 anime season. Not a whole lot to hang on to here. I don't know if any of these shows will still be watching by next episode.
This podcast is going to look very interesting this season. Let's put it like
Figure
that.
It out.
There's a high likelihood that yes, like 2-3 podcasts in from now, we may be entirely discussing exclusively backlog anime
and Ranking of Kings.
Yes,
and Ranking of Kings.
So yeah, let's get into it, and to do that, we'll introduce everybody. First, I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still with us. We've got G.
What's good, everybody?
And we are joined by Aqua.
Reporting to you live from a quarantine because I've got the Rona.
Oh no!
Coronavirus is out there still, folks. Get your boosters.
Yes.
Etc.
By the time you hear this, he may or may not be fine, but regardless, raise your hands to the sky and send Aqua your power.
Energy.
Yes.
Gives your energy like the end of
every anime. This is the part where Gel has to like awkwardly like edit in a bit of him saying, "Unfortunately, Aquagaze has passed away. Out of respect for him and his family, we're going to continue playing the episode."
No, let's not go there. I am not putting in loving memory of Aquagaze at the end of this episode.
That's right. I don't deserve loving memory.
you're gonna be good, but yes. We're hoping nothing but the best on that front.
Well, speaking of things that don't deserve love, how about that anime this season?
Yeah, wow.
Speaking of wretched cursed materials from the Orient,
that is a transition for sure. We are already the train's already off the tracks on this one.
So on our list that is well deserving of our love and attention.
Let me just note. Normally, in an average season, we'll pick like the shows that we were interested in watching or whatever. There really
ones we at least have something to say about, right? Yeah.
There really wasn't more than like 1 or 2 of those, so we're just gonna machine gun pretty much everything, at least everything that I watched through here, be it good or bad. And a lot of these you can just take as a warning. Let's put it that way. All right. Let's dive into it, and we'll start with we'll start with World's End Harem. It's the first thing I watched this season.
Sounds promising.
The title says it all. This is about a guy that wakes up and discovers he is one of only 5 men left on Earth after a virus has killed all of them.
Oh man, Rona got crazy.
And it's a disease that only targeted men, and
this is what the future liberals want.
Brian K. Vaughan's Why the Last Man.
Yes.
Now he is being tasked with repopulating the Earth, but He has sworn he will have sex with no one but the girl he loves, who has mysteriously disappeared. And
I see.
he is also a super genius, so he must find the cure for the disease and the woman he loves before he is seduced by these sex-crazed women who are surrounding him. Because apparently, with all the men dead, now all the women are like sex maniacs that go crazy anytime they see a man.
They've gone, as they say in the biz, cock crazy.
So what I found particularly funny about this is it is supposed to be porn basically, but they take this like 110% serious.
Right.
So 99.5% of the episode is them trying to like set up the plot and like explain and like cover every possible angle of how he could get out of this. And like how he has no choice but to have sex
you
with
must have like penetrative sex with these women.
In all seriousness, right? Like as much as I like glibly compared this to the famous graphic novel Why the Last Man, in Why the Last Man, the explanation you had was their scenario was in some ways even more dire than this protagonist because they were not down to 5 men; they were down to 1 man and 1 monkey.
And the man was a moron.
So, like, it was admittedly a pretty touch-and-go situation there, but you literally said in the synopsis that he is one of 5 men left.
Yes.
So, what are the other 4 men doing?
Well, they don't get into that in the first episode. I'm presuming they are in the same predicament he is. But,
I mean, I'm pretty sure they are there to have hot sex, so that main character doesn't have hot sex.
So, like, my immediate question here is does artificial insemination not work for some reason?
Yes. They specifically came up with some anime science reason.
Really?
They actually asked that question. There was actually
you have to tell me what it is. I need to know what this explanation is.
They didn't really say. They just said it just doesn't work. They didn't really come up with a good reason. They're like,
is it that all male DNA that does not exist within one of the surviving men instantly dies or some shit?
Yeah, they said it was something like they tried and then it didn't work or something. Yeah.
Oh, a wizard did it.
I was gonna say that, like, I mean, not to get crass here, but artificial insemination is not a particularly like high-tech science. Like,
look, man,
you could literally grab a turkey baster and like this is not like the concept of artificial insemination is not like that like fucking new or modern like science technology
class. Yeah.
Like, this episode is never going to air. So the point of the show is still to put naked anime girls on the screen, but I find it
of course
hilarious that they spend 99.5% of the episode trying to justify the reason for having naked anime girls and only like 0.5% of having actual naked anime girls on the screen.
That's right.
Which are all, by the way, hilariously censored, at least on Crunchyroll.
Right, this is the one with the glitch boobs, right?
Yes, they have glitch boobs.
I do have to know the one something I did hear about this series in the past, which I think is really stupid / funny, is that my understanding is one of the other five living males is 18, and so to not overwhelm his mind, what they did is they constructed an elaborate ruse where he is the only male student at a high school of only women, and they're all constantly trying to come on to him.
I would not surprise me.
I
at this point, I'm only covering what was in the first episode of the anime.
So this is the show that got delayed because of the of COVID, right? Like literally, this show was supposed to air last year, right?
Last
I believe
season,
so.
Yes. Yeah.
Was it worth the wait?
No. So we can move on.
Well, all right. Clearly, you haven't seen the uncensored version, man.
Let's talk about.
Well,
let's talk about Girls Frontline.
Speaking of an anime that maybe waited too long.
Oof.
Yeah. Based on the popular gacha game that was popular like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say based on the once popular gacha game Girls Frontline.
This is a bit different because, unlike most gacha adaptations, this is one that G and I have actually played extensively back when it was a thing.
Yes.
So we did actually have prior knowledge of what was going on coming into this.
I sure didn't.
and it was, well, first of all, you don't really, at least I would not play Girls Frontline for the story.
Yeah.
Girls Frontline was fun because of the cool, well, mostly cool, well, some cool character designs.
Sometimes cool.
And
I heard that
somewhat
Valhalla collab was pretty good.
It was, I mean, it was pretty fun to play too, but yeah, the story, it was always funny to me because, again, the story was like extremely like serious, even though this is a game about, I guess we didn't really say the premise, but it's a game about like robot girls who are named after guns. They're gun girls. It's a gun girls anime.
Yes.
Girls.
And you know, you don't really need a plot to prop up a game like that, but they took the plot very seriously, and it appears that the anime is attempting to adapt that plot. And I think the only way this would have worked is if this was like a real knockout on animation and directing.
This thing needed
and,
like 10 times more budget, like or whatever. Like whatever.
Like if this looked good, I'd probably watch it.
Yeah, like whatever nebulous resources required to make an anime look good, Girls Frontline needed way more of it. Because the issue that Girls Frontline falls into is that unlike some of the gacha anime adaptations we've watched in the past, like, you know, your Bahamut's or your Tact Opus Destinies, right, is like, well, the problem that Girls Frontline runs into is two prongs, right? The first is what we've talked about. It's the production. It's just not a very good looking anime. Like, we have joked about all these gacha anime, you know, getting that gacha money, right? Like, these are lucrative properties, right? Like, you know, I don't care for it, but I've watched clips from the Fate Grand Order movies, and it's like, wow, I don't know who these characters are, but this looks like immaculate, right? So that is at least on one level how one can enjoy one of these types of anime is, oh, it's my waifu doing something really cool on screen. But the problem is that Girls Frontline can't even hit that. Like, it's it's a weird thing of like the Girls Frontline anime is too late to capitalize on the game's relevance, and also it's like weirdly low budget in a way that makes you wonder why did they even bother with it in the first place.
Yeah,
so
it gives
Girls
me like
Frontline,
the impression. It gives me the impression like maybe this was a commitment that was made like 2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
It did get announced quite a long time ago, I think.
It did.
Is Girls Frontline is a Chinese production, right?
The game is.
The game
is.
Yes.
I believe the studio is. They contracted out to a Japanese studio for the anime.
Yeah.
Which is going to lead into how I'm going to secretly turn this Girls Frontline discussion into an impromptu Arc Knights discussion. But we'll get to that later.
The last kind of the only other thing I would mention, like, it was kind of neat seeing some of the things from the game on the screen. Like, I did appreciate one small detail where the trash 2 and 3 star girls show up, and they all have in the game itself to like compensate, especially in the early game, for the 2 and 3 stars being trash. You get like multiple copies of them, and they all like you actually have like 3 of them on the screen fighting at once.
Right.
And they recreated that in here.
I mean,
so like,
actually, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, G.
Oh, I was just gonna say, actually, that gets into the other prong of my issue with the Girls Frontline anime is that it's just following the plot of the game, right? Compare this to, again, it's unfair because the bar is so much higher, but again, compare this to, you know, a Rage of Bahamut or a Tact Opus Destiny, which had original plot lines, and as a result, gave them a lot more freedom to explore that universe in ways that better suited the medium of like a serial televised anime series. Meanwhile, Girls Frontline the anime is falling into the trap that some other gacha anime do of just kind of slavishly following the plot of the game.
But I think that's the problem, right? Because you just said the appeal of these shows is like, you know, see your waifu do cool stuff. So the main goal towards writing the show will be get all the waifus to do cool stuff, like,
right. You kind of have to either take the original route, like we're saying, or you just got to embrace that this is a gacha game, and and just like let's.
I didn't particularly care for the Fate Grand Order animes because I don't particularly care for Fate Grand Order, but like their solution to this was just not even bother with setting up the story and just jump.
We're just gonna
like,
assume you played the game, right?
Right. They just jumped to like the most popular arc that everybody wanted to see. Right. Like,
and in some regards,
like that FGO anime was basically Carnival Phantasm, but like not funny, but as in like it was like a bunch of vignettes of like, hey, here are your favorite characters doing those things you like.
And in some regards, that might be the preferable like approach if you're if your case is like Girls Frontline, where the early parts of your story just aren't very good. Like, you know, like Jell already alluded to the fact that nobody really plays Girls Frontline for the story. But as someone who played like more Girls Frontline than Jell did, I can say that there are like vignettes and like side stories in that game that I thought were like kind of decent, right? Like, you know, the aforementioned Valhalla crossover. And like there's some other like side story events with like characters that aren't connected to the main plot where I was like, oh, that's actually like a pretty solid, like, you know, like near sci-fi dystopian like kind of story, right? But like, those are never going to be the things that get adapted if you follow the format of, well, we just need to adapt the main story.
Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you another example just to wrap this up, but it's like the Grand Blue Fantasy anime, which is a game I very much love, but the main story sucks. It's like the side stories that are like kind of fun and whatnot. But the difference with that is at least season 1 looked fantastic.
Great.
But when season 2 happened and they handed off to Mappa and it looked terrible, I don't even know if I finished season 2. Like that spectacle of seeing, you know, the characters you like doing cool things in like really well animated sequences was enough. And we don't even get that here, so...
Exactly. So, you know, it's like that thing of, like... I think the only version of the Girls Frontline anime I would have stuck with is, like, either the version that was so, like, technically accomplished that you could not help but, like, watch it because, hey, you know, it's just that visually impressive, or if they had tried to, like... you know, either come up with a new plot for the anime or explored some of the more interesting side stories. And the fact that it does neither means there's, like... I don't even know if this is, like, worth it for the fans. Like, if you're the person who is still playing Girls Frontline to this day, I still don't know if you're going to get anything, like, of remote worth out of this anime.
M4 is a terrible main character.
That too.
Still no hope for adapting the Valhalla crossover.
Not even M16 Nason could save this.
No,
I mean, the idea is that the best way of doing this is doing an anthology series with like a vignette every episode, right? You adapt some side story of a fan favorite character. You come up with like a fun idea to bounce characters off of each other. But the problem is that requires an effort and like. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this does have enough like squads and stuff you could hop around to like the different.
I'll put it this way: I would not be surprised if there is at least 1 or 2 episodes, like 8 episodes into this anime, that do that. Like as like your like 1 episode breather, we're gonna like focus on a different squad, and like.
Let's go to the one that had I forget the squad that had the sleepy girl on it. I don't know. I haven't played that game in years.
This does remind me. I was joking with G when we were watching that, like, what a gacha anime should do is be all about the 1-star characters that nobody likes fighting, and like their commander is a 2-star character, and they're like the badass commander, right?
You mean you want every gacha anime to be like that one episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars with like,
right? And then like, oh no, we're being overrun. Even the 2-star can handle it. And then somebody shows up and wipes out all of the monsters with 0 effort, and it's a 3-star. You know, it's like we've never even heard of 5 stars. I saw a 4-star once at a military parade.
See, you joke, Eero, but like there are legitimately story events in Arknights that are almost basically that. Of like we're gonna follow like these 2 and 3 stars around for the first half of the story. And then the 6-star that is on the current banner will show up halfway in to
Don't
like
you want to
save
pull
the
for
day.
this?
Exactly.
Be the coolest badass.
Yep. Well, I don't want to turn this into the Gacha Game podcast here because we could get into that. But I don't know. Gee, is it even too late for an Arknights anime at this point?
So I should probably save this for whenever we need to do our season preview for when the Arknights anime actually airs. The thing I will say about Arknights that I think maybe gives it a chance that the Girls Frontline anime didn't have is that the people behind Arknights, Yostar, have done something a little bit different. Of instead of like subcontracting out their anime work, they have been gradually building their own internal studio called Yostar Pictures. And that internal studio is the one that has been responsible for all of the animated PVs for Arknights. The, like, the which very good 30-second Sakuga, reels, basically.
Yeah.
And I think my understanding is that they have slowly been building up the staff for the studio in preparation for a full-length TV series. And so, judging these 30-second clips isn't very helpful because almost, not that it's easy, but almost any studio on the planet can make at least 30 seconds look good.
Right.
But the fact that they are keeping their production internal means that, like, hopefully that means there's, like, more...
some kind of consistency or something.
Yeah, closer oversight, of the whole project, right? That it's not just going to be contracted out to somebody, that this is going to be something that they are personally keeping tabs on. So... maybe that's enough to make it work. It's honestly still hard to say. Like, my understanding is that Arknight still consistently rates on the charts for gacha games. Like, it's not like really it's not up there with your Grand Blues and your Fate Goes and your Uma Musumes and such. But like,
gets a lot of fan art.
It is a contender in that space, if nothing else. And so, to still be like. To still stay on that list 2 years in tells me that...
Yeah, it's definitely still one of the big ones, but yeah. All right.
But hard to say. Honestly, it's hard to predict these things.
So. We'll see how that goes when that time comes, but as for Girls Frontline, nah.
Yep.
All right. Let's go on to Slow Loop. This is Girls Fishing.
Slow loop, more like slow boop.
Right, we did watch this.
Yes.
Shit.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you. This is
another
one eye in, one eye out anime.
Oh my god, yeah.
Another in the venerable line of girls fishing anime.
I don't think we've had too many girls fishing ones, just like girls doing something that the author is obsessed with. Yeah. This show so desperately wants to be Eurocamp. Like, it has the same dynamic. It tries to invoke the same vibe of, like, finding the beauty in, like, shitty suburban small town Japan in winter, which is something most of these, like, slice of life type shows generally don't do. Like, they're all set in perpetual spring or summer.
Isn't this in the same magazine as Eurocamp?
Of course it is. They're all in the same magazine. Like...
Also, shout out to Super Cub, whose number one enemy was winter. But go on.
But yeah, like, I mean, it is very much in that vein. There is one interesting, quote unquote, interesting thing about Slow Loop that I didn't really go into in my review. But it, like, at least they sort of try to do some character stuff, because it's a very basic thing. You have the sheltered, withdrawn girl who really likes fishing, and then one day she comes across the idiot, and she also wants to learn how to go fishing. So the quiet girl explains to the idiot how to fish. But the interesting thing is that the quiet girl's father has recently passed away, and like, he was the one who taught her all about fishing. And this is something that they don't just offhandedly mention. Like, it's something that recurs over and over again. Like, she is still grieving her father, like, her family is changing. Of course, it turns out that her mom gets remarried with the idiot's father, so they become stepsisters. But like, I at least appreciate that they try to bring some humanity into this, like, weird La La Land.
The, like, one good part of that episode was when they were like, is it okay that I'm moving into your father's old room? Like,
yeah.
Like,
I mean, I tend to like those shows when I'm in the mood for them, but
But this is just not a good one of those.
It's
Like
just
it
not a
doesn't,
good-
it doesn't
good
look
example of it,
pretty,
that's the question.
and like that's the main appeal of many of these shows is that they look pretty and relaxing, and this just looks sort of dull and drab.
Yeah.
The characters are not very interesting. The jokes are not funny. Um, there's like the one joke they have is like, haha, it's the middle of winter and the idiot takes off her clothes and it's in her swimsuit and she's going swimming, but oh no, it's cold.
It's cold. You'll catch a
Like,
Japanese cold.
That's their idea of a joke. Like,
Yeah.
and everything else is just the drabbest, dullest.
You gotta
baff.
bring more than that these days.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Maybe the
do.
reason I thought there were more of these is because wasn't there one of these that was like actually like pretty popular a couple like seasons back?
Oh,
or a
there
few
was
years back?
there was one with fishing.
The Dogakobo one.
Yes, but that was
oh
that
God.
one was river fishing, and this is sea fishing.
Ah, of course, of course.
Completely different.
But yeah, it's just I definitely remember.
Are
like,
days at the backwater? Are days at the
Something like that.
something
yeah.
water?
Diary of Our Days at the Breakwater.
Yes, there we go.
Jesus
Yeah, I just
Christ.
remember I never watched it myself, but I just remember like people who like actually stuck with it being like, "Oh, it's actually like pretty good. It's Dogakobo didn't fuck this one up."
Right.
Not
I
a
mean,
weird
my
Molotov
recommendation is
thing.
But
my recommendation is if you want to watch a show about fishing, watch Tsuritama, which is also about fishing, but it has a guy who is like a fakir wearing a turban and he has a magic goose or something.
Yeah, that's a
I-
very different kind of
yeah.
show. I'm just gonna say watch Super Cub, but
Yeah, watch Eurocamp or Super Cup.
or even
uh,
Eurocamp.
What's
like,
the
I-
show
I-
about, like-
I don't really care for Eurocamp that much, but I at least understand like the appeal of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep things moving
Yeah.
here. Let's talk about my Dress Up Darling, which actually I heard a lot of people
This one's received some positive buzz.
this one was
giving
supposed to
it some
be
positive
like
buzz.
Yeah.
one of the high-profile ones, right?
I would
Yes.
not say it was awful,
Isn't the
but I did
manga
not
for this
care for it.
pretty
Yeah,
popular?
this is the manga for this is pretty big.
Yeah. So
I actually,
the-
if I can, I actually read the manga to see if I wanted to watch this first episode. And first of all, a couple of things. This is a show about a plain guy who discovers that a like trendy, flashy girl he barely
boy.
knows secretly has a secret that she is into like super weird porn games. And he has to
boy.
now help her embrace her love for anime, and this is
Wow.
Orimo.
Okay,
This is
okay, it's a
Orimo.
little it's a little more specific than that because with
This is
with
Orimo.
with the main guy, so his deal is like his grandfather makes these like traditional Japanese
Yes,
dolls,
yeah.
Oh,
and
sure.
so he got into like wanting to learn to make dolls and learn how to sew and stuff like that, and he gets like
such unmanly hobby.
yes, he gets
Ah,
bullied
yeah,
as a
see where this
kid
is
for
going.
being doing such unmanly activities, and he tries to keep to himself, and yes, then he does eventually encounter the hottest girl in school who secretly is into the weird porn games and anime, and she wants to do cosplay, and she's so impressed with his sewing skills, and so they team up to I guess sew
that's
things.
The gimmick.
But the thing
Okay.
is, like, I read a couple of chapters of this manga, and it's really charming. Like, the thing is, they portray the girl really well, as in, like, she is this magnetic, charismatic, optimistic person who, like, doesn't judge him for his interest, who is, like, super excited about what she loves, who, like, fully embraces her desire to cosplay, and it's, like, it's super
Okay.
positive and nice, and then also they just sexualize the hell out of her.
Yes,
Like, the
so-
only way they can show that this girl is comfortable with her own body is by doing a bunch of ass shots and leg shots and panty shots and whatever the fuck. And
yeah.
yeah.
We are talking about the anime and not the manga as well here, so
Yes,
that's
yes.
I feel even more pronounced in animated form. Because I have to admit, and this might sound bad, but I just assumed this was like a shoujo manga at first, because the premise and like the character designs even kind of look like it.
Kind of has that look.
And yeah, and then they start shoving the camera down her shirt and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing here. And it very much undermines like what could be,
Exactly,
like
right?
Aqua said, like a nice positive message show which I don't even think they really lean, at least in the first episode that I saw, I don't even really think they care so much about that as it's just the set dressing to set up this very like mediocre romantic comedy. So I mean that's the impression I got from the first episode anyway. I was just not really all that impressed.
All right,
and, like,
but what if this main character, like, instead of like becoming withdrawn as a result of his hobbies, instead overcompensated and lashed out by getting buff and dyeing his hair and becoming a rowdy street delinquent.
What if beating up biker gangs and such, you saying?
Exactly, yes. And what if the girl was a teen idol who would return to her small town after her impromptu retirement? And together they solved crimes in the television.
We can't be making extensive Persona 4 references.
10 years later, he ended up shilling NFTs. R.I.P.
Yes, especially. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, this was not the worst thing I watched, but I feel like it was not living up to whatever it was trying to accomplish, and kind of shooting itself in the foot with the.
It was definitely the kind of show that got some buzz, and then you got interested, and then there's something. Oh, this only got some buzz because it's like some shit normies who have never watched another romantic comedy anime before. Like.
Yeah, I don't know.
I was there for Oreimo. I have watched. I have suffered.
Is this a case of
I've seen
begging,
things you people would never believe.
Is this another case of begging the anime viewing like base as a whole? Like, I'm begging of you, please, to have watched another romantic comedy anime in your life, like at least one other.
Yeah.
But
all right. Let's move along to Miss Kuroitsu from the Monster Development Department. This almost seemed like the kind of show I would like. It is it's set in a world where tokusatsu is real. And,
so the real world.
And
yes, of course.
there is a actual company that develops the monsters to try and stop the heroes.
It's like in the Kirby anime where they keep calling in that company to buy the monsters.
Like, kind of.
Ship them over.
And,
give me a monster to smash that damn Kirby.
We gotta clobber that Kirby.
Yeah, clobber that Kirby. Yes, that's
and
what it is.
So Miss Kuroitsu is a overworked, underpaid researcher at the Monster Development Department, and she has to try and compensate for her terrible boss and pitch monsters to the committees, and it's kind of supposed to be, I guess, an office comedy thing, but I feel like whoever made this really just wanted to animate fake Toku stuff.
Sure.
They should have just made this a Toku. Like,
and
everything becomes 300% funnier when you do it as Toku.
Actual live action. Like...
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like, I don't know. I feel like they were making a lot of references that went over my head on this, if we're being honest.
Probably.
At the end credits, like they did show like people in live action suits that were the ones that were in the episode, and I don't know if they were real or if they made them up just for this. I don't know. Somebody can go look into that, I guess, but tell us if you know what any of that means. But it was just not. It was just. It didn't feel like it had a very strong sense of what it wanted to do, and the humor wasn't really all that funny. Like they tried to sneak in some office jokes, like even though that they're the evil organization, that they have a pretty good HR department that makes her take her PTO and stuff like that. Like, and it was like, I feel like there was something there they could have worked with.
I mean,
but
I think the problem with this type of anime, right, is like it's a good premise for a bit.
Yeah.
But you need more than just that bit to sustain an entire show.
I mean, the thing is also that office comedies have become so popular lately, and we generally like them because we're millennials and we hate our jobs. But the thing is, like, when there have been so many of them, the point is, like, you have to be really good to stand out.
Yeah, you need it, exactly. Like, you can't just do the same old jokes because, like, again, it's like, you have such a good premise here, like, if you're just gonna have a premise like this, but you're still doing the same old anime office comedy jokes, like you're not even leveraging your premise that well to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, more often than not, we see with anime comedies where they'll come up with a great idea, and this being funny is hard.
Yeah, no, it's
you need more than a good idea. You need to know how to write jokes and how to.
I would go as far as say that, like, I think even though most people will probably say, "Oh, I'm not very funny," or "Oh, I don't have a great sense of humor," I would actually say, in my experience, most people are actually pretty good at coming up with bits.
Yeah.
Like, the problem is that why people think they're not funny is because, most people don't know how to keep that bit going for more than, like, 5 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of feels like the trap that this show is falling into.
Go write a 12-episode series of
exactly
2 episodes, 2 minutes each about it. Yeah.
Right. Like, think about the way humor is paced. Like, in 22 minutes, how many jokes do you actually have to write in 22 minutes? Like,
it's a lot.
A lot, actually.
It's a lot. So.
Well, how does this show compare to that? Remember that show from a couple years? Not a couple of years. A few. God, time. Whatever.
Seasons.
The one about the people who work for God to make animals.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So it did have a bit of that here. That ended up being kind of edutainment.
Yes, I remember.
Where there is no educational value to this.
Well,
you will be
sure,
dumber
yes.
after watching this.
Put that on the back of the box.
Yeah, you will actually be actively dumber after watching this. So, but it is kind of. I did kind of think of that. It's kind of a similar energy to it, but no. All right. Let's move along to one of many ridiculously well animated things that don't deserve it on this list. Let's talk about Akebi's sailor uniform.
Also, Cloverworks.
I get the feeling Cloverworks just went up to Kyoto Animation and held them up at gunpoint and told them, like, "You're gonna animate this show for us, and we're gonna take all the credit."
Are they trying to copy that style?
Yes, very much
absolutely.
so.
I read the premise, and I don't know if this actually plays out, but in the description they're talking about the main girl wanting to have 100 friends, and I'm like, didn't we literally just do that?
Oh my god, the show is one of the most actively stupid things I have ever watched. So the entire premise is there's this girl who is about to enter middle school, and she was the only girl at her elementary school. By the way, in the second episode, they showed that she was not just the only girl; she was the only student at her elementary school.
I don't think you have a school then at that point.
That's actually kind of a good bit. I'm not gonna lie.
But this is not a joke. Like, this is played as honestly as possible. So she's super excited about going to middle school, and she wants to wear a sailor uniform because her favorite idol also wears a sailor uniform in some commercial that she likes, because that's totally a thing normal people think. So she gets her mom to sew her a sailor uniform, and then she wears it.
By trade,
yeah, and then she wears it to school, and the principal is like, "Sorry, but we already have a uniform, and it's not that." And but then she still gets she gets permission to wear the custom sailor uniform, and then she gets embarrassed because, like, I don't want to be an exception to the rule. Why can't everyone just wear a sailor uniform?
Someone has written an entire series about this.
Yes, and that's the show. That's the show. And the second episode is just like, "Oh wow, Akebi, you sure like sailor uniforms." Yes, I like them more than blazers. Oh, but blazers are pretty good too. That's the show.
So at the end of the day, though, is this just pedophile bait? Is that
yes?
So I mean, that's what I'm trying to say here. Is like, let's just move past the premise, right? Let's just get into the actual meat of, like, why people are talking about this anime, right? And it's like,
this is just schoolgirl fetish.
Okay, two things. Yeah, Ira, go ahead.
It's just like there's a lot of extremely well animated, high budget shots of just like her dressing up and putting on her sailor uniform and
putting on her socks,
and
like whittling her little toes around while she's lying on the bed.
In her underwear, waiting for her mom to make her sailor uniform.
And it's just like
school uniform, the sailor uniform.
The most kind of like the creepy, leery, voyeuristic sort of fetishization of like, oh, youthful innocence.
And the thing is, budding flower.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is aggravated by the fact that this show seems to be set in like rural England.
Wait, what?
Like it's not.
It's just some fantastically beautiful version.
Yeah, and they all live in like weird, like thatched houses.
Okay, that puts a very different spin on it.
Oh, this puts this into like fantasy land.
Okay. Yeah,
I was like, wait a second.
But it's obviously meant just supposed to be rural Japan, like.
But the thing is, like, I watched the second episode just now, and this show is clearly written by someone who either has no idea or doesn't care how the real world works. Because this doesn't look like the real world. The people in this show do not act like the real world. Like, Akebi, she's supposed to be this, like, this innocent, blithe spirit, the manic pixie dream girl who's going to rock the school.
I mean, that's just anime.
She just comes across as the most, like, obnoxious, self-centered person who's just obsessed with sailor uniforms and thinks the world revolves around her. What I'm basically saying is this is the Emily in Paris of anime, except it's also creepy as fuck. Like in the second episode, there's this whole bit where she does a very slow cartwheel in front of the class.
Oh, I did see a clip of this.
And the camera's like, oh, her skirt is lowering. Are you gonna see her panties? And then they cut away. And
Which
the
is
entire
worse than actually showing her panties.
Yes, and the entire rest of the episode is them just in the most boring, weird set up, like the weirdest fetish stuff you can think of. Like there is an entire conversation where they're talking about their favorite school uniforms, and then one girl is like, oh, but I like the blazer, can I try on your sailor uniform and then you can try on my blazer? And then the other girl is like, no, Akebi, she's a trickster, she's trying to have you take off your uniform in front of the entire class. And then Akebi's like, no!
That would emotionally destroy you as you have abandoned your closest ideals.
Yeah, and it is just.
Right,
we haven't even talked about the nail clippings yet.
Yeah, that happens. Her first friend, when she goes to school really early in the morning because she doesn't want to be caught outside of school being the only student wearing a sailor uniform. And so she goes to school in her sailor uniform and slowly enters the classroom, but there's already another student there who's very sensually clipping her toenails on the desk in full view of the camera, and then she, assuming nobody's watching her, leans up and sniffs her nail clipper very slowly and sensually.
Yeah, that's going some places.
Alright, so here's the real question then. Alright, here's the real question. Between this and the other one, My Dress-Up Darling, how are y'all feeling about Cloverworks being the one handling the Spy X Family anime adaptation?
That's at least a collab.
At least it's gonna look nice.
You know, I
are
think
you ready
they have...
for the sensual scenes of Anya?
Of Anya making dumb faces, yes.
Yes, while sniffing her toenails.
I feel like they have a broad enough portfolio where we may not need to judge it by these two examples, but...
Fair enough.
I do have... Okay, if I can say one thing, there is one thing I like about this show, aside from the fact that it looks nice, and that is that Akebi has a really nice dynamic with her little sister, who's like an elementary school gremlin, and they just hang out and they play together, and they generally just have a very fun, like, realistic dynamic that is a bit different from the usual, like, oh, my baby sister's so annoying dynamic. So I really like that. It's unfortunate that most of their conversations happen while they're both in the bath, but you know, baby steps.
That's really stretching it.
Dabbing with faint praise.
We're really grabbing now. All right. Well, let's keep moving. Let's talk about Requiem of the Rose King. I don't know why I watched this, if we're being honest.
Don't you like Shakespeare?
Yeah, so any show that starts off very prominently saying this is not based on Shakespeare, but inspired by Shakespeare.
Of course.
So it's a story.
And not even like the Shakespeare that most people know, but it's like specifically like some of the like King Henry plays or something like that.
Yeah, this is like Richard III, right?
It's
Or like
it's a mix of
the Rose War, the War of the Roses plays.
Yeah, it's a mix of like the main character is who will eventually be King Richard, who is possibly a woman in this.
I've heard that they are explicitly portrayed as intersex, which is interesting.
I don't know if that was entirely clear in the first episode, but that's probably. I only watched the first episode.
I mean, my reasoning is that like, okay, that's an interesting thing to do. You know, if you're gonna tackle Shakespeare and the whole idea that Shakespeare wrote these plays as Tudor propaganda to make Richard III look like an insane tyrant.
Right.
It could be very interesting if they like take a gender angle into that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay, so this is just a straight up like an adaptation of Shakespeare, or
no.
Okay.
It's inspired by some of the events would loosely, I think the characters and like some of the events kind of loosely correlate to things that happened in those particular block of plays, but it's not meant to be like a one-to-one adaptation. And as far as the actual episode, I had very little idea what was going on. There was a lot of people giving speeches, which in retrospect I should not have been surprised.
They're called soliloquies, Joe.
Yes, at this time, presently it's Prince Richard. They magically possibly fall in love with some other pretty anime person. I don't know what was happening, and it didn't really look great either. They did not have the resources to match the ambition I think that they were going for. So this was just like a real like heavy, pretentious, ugly looking mess.
Oh, it's a chuny anime. It's what you're saying.
Yes, I would categorize this as a chuny anime. So yeah, that happened.
That happened.
Is that it? Just nothing else notable about this?
Yeah, like I couldn't even like other than like the general plot points of what happens there, where like I forget which king they have to overthrow or something, and then eventually it's going to lead to Richard being king or whatever. Like other than those kind of base points, I had no idea what they were doing. like what the characters' motivations were or anything.
I wonder if that's an adaptation problem or a source material problem.
I don't know. I'm only personally even just vaguely familiar with like the plays. The general idea of the play. Like I've never actually read any of those. Like I said, those are not the Shakespeare that at least not in my school.
That's not the Shakespeare you teach in school.
Yeah, they make you read like Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth and those and Hamlet and whatnot. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I mean, all right then.
Yep. So let's talk about
Sasaki and Miyano.
Yes. Sasaki and Miyano. I can almost barely remember what this was about.
This was
what a great season, folks! What a season! What a season!
No, this was the BL one about the guy who likes BL, right?
Yes, it's a boys love manga about boys that love manga.
Of course.
Sure.
It was actually pretty cute. Like it was very wholesome.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because most of the BL that gets made into an anime is usually the kind of the abusive, edgy kind.
Yeah.
Like, there's stuff like Given, right? Like,
yeah, there's a shift is coming. That is true. We're getting a more diverse lineup of BL shows that are getting an anime.
Yeah, then I think that's kind of why I watched this, because I'm kind of looking for the next thing that's going to be like Given, because I really loved Given, the TV series, not the movie. To be clear, not the movie, but the TV series, because the movie was very much what we were talking about with the
was it?
Abusive, gross BL stuff. But the TV series, well, Given was more of a mix of like drama and like wholesomeness, this was very like just all wholesome.
Right.
But
like,
it is explicitly romantic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So they are going in that direction, but it's like
Mhm.
it's gonna be a slow burn,
Okay.
for sure. But yeah. So it was fun. I guess in that respect, it was okay. I just didn't really care about the characters are very generic. Like they do not have any personality beyond this is a
We're in
reasonably
boys'
nice
show,
person,
yeah.
and like these are two reasonably nice people that seem to be into each other. Isn't that nice?
Good for
That's
them.
fine. Good for them.
I guess.
But it was just
like
not.
there's no like specificity to the characters, right? Like
Right, yeah. Like I couldn't tell you any of like specific personality traits about them other than they are nice, and apparently one of them is really into BL manga and he shares it with his friend, and his friend thinks he's cute. And
okay then.
That's the show. So worst things you could watch, I guess, but I need a little bit more than that to pull me in on this one. Like again, if we're gonna compare to Given, like the main character was a real airheaded idiot, but he was interesting, and they had like the whole
That's
band
a
angle
personality
thing.
trait.
Yeah, they had the whole band angle thing to go with, and I like there was a lot of other things going on, and this just does not have that. So, all right, are we gonna do Sabikui Bisco next?
Sure, yeah. I think
Which might be the only show I keep watching.
yeah, this is what passes for a highlight of this season.
Yeah. So, what is the actual premise of the show here at this point? Like, it's
I mean, it's actually like weird, well, not straightforward, but it's like it's something you've seen before, right? It takes place at a post-apocalyptic Japan, you know, desert apocalypse. There's a disease known as the rusty wind, or there's a phenomenon known as the rusty wind that causes an incurable disease known as the rusting.
Where your body literally turns to rust.
Exactly, and the world believes that the rusting is caused by mushrooms. So the world has this huge animus against all forms of fungi. And it just so happens, it turns out that our protagonist, Bisco, or was it man-eating?
Yeah.
Man-eater Bisco,
Yeah.
as he is known, he's declared an outlaw of the world because he has the ability to make mushrooms sprout from arrows he shoots from his bow. And at least that's how much you know based on episode 1.
Yep.
You know, it's
yep. It's definitely, they're definitely going for like this like post-apocalyptic in the desert vibe. Although there is some bits in the city too.
Definitely, like it didn't quite hit me until I had read our first look post where Artemis had also contributed. But like, I feel like maybe the greatest like sin that you can throw at Sabikui Bisco is that it reminds you of two other like much better stories in the same vein. Those being Trigun and Dorohedoro.
Yeah. Yeah, the mushrooms especially made me think of Dorohedoro a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Course, yeah.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is like it's not that Sabikui Bisco is bad, but I think that at least based on its first episode, because again, that's all we have
so far.
All we've seen so far. It's a show that's like weirdly kind of like languid in its pacing, and I feel like it doesn't necessarily have that strongly defined of a personality yet.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just to bring it up, because like it did hit me at the time. Since watching Sabikui Bisco, I've reread the entire Trigun manga, watched like the first couple episodes of the Trigun anime, and rewatched the opening scene of Trigun Badlands Rumble, the movie that
I've never seen that
came
movie.
out. It's good. I mean, it's a side story. It's like the Cowboy
Right,
Bebop movie of like, you know, it takes place before the end.
Also, I know
so
it came
like,
out like a very long time after that.
Yeah.
Show,
But anyways, my point I'm bringing up here is like, you know, like yes, Trigun did eventually have more nuanced things to say, like, as you read deeper. But on its face, what it was is, here's some crazy-ass cowboy apocalypse shenanigans, right? Like, it very quickly, very easily established its personality very early on, right?
Yeah.
To compare this to, what Artemis mentioned of Dorohedoro, again, very early on, that story establishes its personality, right? The
Yes.
vibe it's going for.
Right.
And I think that Sabikui Bisco maybe just needs more time. At least that's me being optimistic, is that maybe this anime really would have benefited from a double-length feature, right? Like 2 episodes in week 1, because
we kind of have the 2 separate plot threads of Bisco in the desert and then this back alley doctor helping people. And while I would say I'm broadly interested in both, I also don't feel as if either really gave me a hook.
Yeah.
To bite on.
Yeah. It definitely felt like there was something missing, and I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it is just like the energy level. Like,
right.
you would think a show that has a dude that shoots a bow and arrow that sprouts magic mushrooms, we'd be talking about, do you remember that one wild bit where he was,
no,
doing
totally,
whatever?
right?
Yeah,
Because there's none of that.
Even,
like, it's
but,
very
because here's
pedestrian.
the thing, right? If you were to describe moments in Sabikui Bisco, like, out of context, it sounds like a show that should have that, right? Like, remember, like, there's that weird bit that comes out of nowhere in the middle of the episode with, like, the fucking slug bioplane?
Right, and, like,
yes.
Crab shooting
like,
the cannon.
And Crab, yeah, it's like, that's, like... a show where I say the words slug bioplane and crab cannon should be the kind of show that, like, you hear that, like, rise in energy in our voices, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it
criminal
should
organizations
be that,
that wear the pink animal
right,
masks.
the bunny rabbit masks,
Yes,
right?
the bunny
Like,
rabbit
fucking,
masks.
Fucking,
yeah.
With, like, their fucking Tommy guns. Like, it's a show that, like, aesthetically and visually feels like it actually should have that kind of energy, but at least so far. And again, we've only seen 1 episode, but at least so far, it seems like it hasn't really hit that stride yet. And maybe this is one of those stories where, like, it's a little, like, it's stumbling out the gate because it feels like it needs to establish all this stuff about this new universe, right? And maybe once all that stuff is established, maybe once the character dynamic is set up, then the hijinks and the antics will kind of start, coming up. But right now,
man.
yeah, it's in a bit of a weird place.
I think
I want to like it, but
I think it's still worth keeping an eye on for another, maybe episode or 2.
I would say so.
Yeah.
I'm real skeptical. Like, is this just going to be is this going to be a Pari Ranman over again?
Oof.
Like,
oh man,
where we've got, like, we've got these, like, wild character designs and, like, concepts and everything, and then we just do, like, literally nothing with it.
I hope not, because it does.
I hope not.
It Apari Ranman, as much as I hate to admit, might actually be the better comparison, because the one I was thinking of initially was Sakugan, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Of,
well,
like,
in recent memory, yes, that's a good example, but
here's the problem: Sakugan's first episode was actually really good.
Yeah.
yes, yep.
So, like, the comparison almost doesn't actually work, because Sabikui Bisco doesn't even have that much going for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, the first episode of Sakugan's great, so
yeah.
That's I don't know. Yeah, I'm thinking of Pari Ranma because that is a show that had really fantastic style
Did
and
nothing with it
a premise that should have been a slam dunk, and
Yep.
and it was just such a boring, dull show. I'm worried that we are headed in that direction. They're gonna have to pull out more slug spaceships or whatever next time.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
I'm hoping that, like, it did play the OP at the end, and I feel like there's a lot of energy in that OP that I want to see in the show itself. So I am hoping that maybe this is one that can turn it around. Maybe it just needs some time to find its footing. But yeah, out the gate, like, it really speaks to, like, how weak this season is, that despite everything we've just said about Sabikui Bisco, we're probably all still like, still the thing to keep an eye on.
Yup.
Yeah. I mean, if this was last season, I would not still be watching this.
No.
For being honest. But,
it hangs in a season like this, though.
yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Well, let's talk about. Speaking of, I guess, shows that have a good concept but don't live up to it.
The premise should be a slam dunk, or as we say here, a home run, perhaps.
Yes, Tribe 9. I didn't watch this, but I read the premise. Like, that sounds awesome, but I'm gonna wait till I was gonna let you guys all watch it and see the verdict. It didn't sound like.
The premise. I mean, just the staff, right? Oh, Mr. Akudama Drive, is that you?
Look, we all knew it couldn't happen again.
Yeah.
This show just does not have what it takes for its premise, I think.
So what is the exact premise other than violent future baseball?
Yeah, I mean that's basically...
That's a great premise. That's all you need to say.
Basically,
right? That's the thing that drives me crazy. Violent future baseball should alone
crime
be
got
good
out
enough.
of control in Japan, and so they in Neo Tokyo they closed it off. And
wait, is it actually Neo Tokyo?
Yes.
Just like Neo Osaka.
It was closed off, and now all conflict must be solved via extreme baseball. And so, of course, it starts out with a bullied kid and some tuna fisher or whatever happen to be in the same area as a pro extreme baseball player and get dragged into his team, and they gotta become the best extreme baseball player. Except this is actually presented in a very dull manner until probably the very end of the episode.
Which is the only time they have money to make something look cool.
So this didn't get the Akudama Drive money either.
No.
It's like, even when they pop out at the end of the episode, like, okay, so like at the end of the episode, they finally play some extreme baseball, and like, it's fun because like Tokyo Tower just has a big thing that lights it over. It's like base 3, right? So it's
That's pretty good.
It's like they're playing baseball across the entire city. And I'm like, okay. It's like the outfielders are literally like parkouring up buildings to catch the ball and stuff. And I'm like, all right, we're kind of getting somewhere.
I do also have to mention that like the good guy team has like a character in it who is like quadruplets, I think. It's like 4 identical dudes, because otherwise they wouldn't have enough guys to like make a quirky baseball team.
It's just like, it just takes the whole episode to get to this, and then it's not even that well animated. Like, the enemy pitcher puts on a suit of power armor with like a big arm cannon. It's like, I'm gonna pitch the ball at you at 50 horsepower with this cannon. I'm like, well, first of all,
I mean, this all sounds
right,
great.
I'm having fun, but then also it's like 50 horsepower. That seems a little low.
See, this is the part where now I run and say that if this exact same episode of this exact same premise had been written by Nakashima and directed by Hiroyuki Amaishi, would this dude be saying
5 million
like
horsepower?
Yeah, 5 million horsepower.
Exactly. That's the energy that's missing.
Oh, is that like the microcosm of the show's problem then? Like, they don't
go
crank it up enough?
Exactly. And so,
because here's the thing, right? Like, so we all know this to be true. Baseball episodes tend to be very good in anime. Like, this is a self-evident truth.
We have been on record on that many times.
Is this the thing that is revealing to us that baseball episodes are good in anime because they are one-offs?
IUCG, unlike other baseball shows, the ones that we like are actually not about baseball, but about the characters.
Oh god.
Well,
that's what
here's
I'm
the
saying,
thing.
right?
Here's the thing.
I'm right.
Anime never start with a baseball episode.
Yes, that's true.
Because, as we've discussed many times about baseball episodes, they're good because we've established our cast of characters, and now we're giving them an opportunity to kind of act out and play out the different interactions of what happens when you mix this character with this character.
My understanding is that Big Wind-Up is quite good.
Yes, Big Wind-Up is an excellent baseball anime. I'll rep that till the day I die. But yeah, no, it's just like, it just sounds like like a show. Again, another thing where the premise should be like, this should be so easy, right? This should be so easy to make work, right?
Yeah.
You say violent future baseball, and like my butt should already be in that seat.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe just needed I hate to be that guy, but I don't know. Maybe Imaishi should have directed this instead, right? Like maybe you just
I don't know.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Let's
Press
be
press the
generous and say there
button.
are other,
Press the button that says Imaishi should have directed this.
Yeah,
Look,
be
I'm
generous
just
and
saying.
say there are probably many other
I
directors
guess
that could have
like
handled it
it's
better.
like
But yes,
Akudama Drive opens up, and Akudama Drive goes for it. It's got style, and it's just is in your face with that style from the first minute of that show, and doesn't let up. Tribe 9 is just like so much more generic about like, oh no, this character's being bullied, but there's baseball, and this character needs to learn to stand up for themselves, and they're gonna learn that by watching extreme baseball. And then at the end, we get some actual a little bit of extreme baseball as a treat, right?
You could have a little bit of extreme baseball.
And it's like, no, you should have opened up. This show should be all about how insane extreme baseball
Right, like this,
is.
again, like, it doesn't have to be him, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like in the hands of a better director, like, this feels like the kind of show where the very first 3 minutes of this show should have opened up to, like, the grimiest, grittiest, bloodiest extreme baseball match that the world had ever seen. Right.
Then
like,
cut to the main kid watching it or something, and then go into that. Right.
Right. Like
you
get you
start
into the
off
right,
with the hook.
Yeah. Right. And get you in the right mind space for a show like that. You know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just disappointing.
That might be the theme of this episode: is you need more than a good idea here.
yes.
Well, I guess on the other end of the spectrum,
this is a
terrible
idea, but maybe we can make it work.
All right. So I can't believe I'm gonna say some of the words I'm gonna say. So
okay, all right.
Let me just
What's the title
put
of
some
the show?
giant asterisks, some many grains of salt here with anything I'm about to say about the show.
We
But,
reserve
what's
the
the
rights
title
to
of the
retract
show?
these words at any moment.
the show so I watched Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout, thinking that this was going to be in the running for the worst show of the season. The premise being that there are these two 30-something salarymen who are best friends, and one night they get drunk and some goddess shows up and transports them to another world. And,
Oh wow, I've never heard of this plot.
And one of them is transformed into a beautiful young girl.
Whoa!
So I'm like, all right, I'm loading my gun here.
Right. Like, premise alone, it's like
Start counting your bullets.
I'm ready to deal with the transphobia and the homophobia and all the phobias, and let's just get this over with for the sake of covering for the blog. And
however,
I can't believe I'm saying this. It's actually kind of good.
sure. I mean, look, like, nobody has ever said that, like, anime made it to the top by being politically correct.
Okay, so
Right.
let's address that. Let's address that first. Okay. So, again, I don't feel appropriate declaring this quote-unquote good or safe or whatever as a, straight cisgender man. I don't know how much value my opinion has on that. But I have read other commentary from, other reviews from people of all different genders on this, and everybody seems very positive on it. I'll just throw that out there. And not that necessarily makes it okay either. I think everybody will have their, you can form your own opinion. But generally, the feedback has been positive. It is walking on some very, very thin ice, though.
Sure.
And this is just based on the first episode. So there is, especially in the beginning, there is a lot of like, why do I think my friend is hot? I'm into women. There's a lot of no homo going on in the beginning.
Of course.
But eventually that goes away, and the guy just kind of gives up. He's like, oh yeah, I'm just gay, I guess. Like it.
Sure. I mean,
All
character
right.
eventually-
development.
And I think this is kind of like the discussion I had when I was talking about Dragon Maid 2 seasons ago, where like you can tell the overall message that they're going for is that these two actually love each other, and that their physical form does not matter.
I think that's in
and-
general just a way in which that kind of stuff can be made palpable in manga and anime, because you see this a lot in manga and anime. There's like, oh, stuff about like guy suddenly turns into a girl, and ooh, what does that mean if he/she falls in love with another guy or girl? And like, I think the whole gender bender thing, or the whole genre of that is so commonly seen in manga and anime, is just because that is the way to discuss these kinds of topics in a non-controversial way. Like,
right, in a way that's not gonna, you're not gonna get the same kind of pushback or whatever from certain types of people. But, and I part of me is like, I would rather see, let's just be upfront about it, but it's a way to do it. But I think I think what is different, at least from what I've seen of these kinds of shows, is like they do just eventually just accept that oh, I really actually am in love with this person, and the show then shifts to, like, a lot of people have compared this to Kaguya-sama Love is War, where they are both in love with each other, but they're trying to force the other person to admit it.
Sure.
So there's a lot of like mind games going on as like they're trying to feel out the situation.
So does the isekai element factor into this at all, or is it just an excuse to turn one of them into a girl?
Yeah, it's just an excuse to add some magic to it, because like at one point they like fight a monster, and the guy who is still a guy like has magical punching powers.
Is he the one who gets the cheat skill?
Yeah, yeah. He looks suspiciously like the guy from Big O too, I think. But...
Wait, really? Roger Smith?
Wait, like Roger Smith
with glasses. Well, I put the screenshot in the Discord. You guys saw him.
Paradigm City's top negotiator, Roger Smith.
He's got the hair, but
wow, weirdly relevant. Why are we talking about Big O all of a sudden? Weird.
Well, maybe we'll talk about that later, but no. So yes, there's definitely. I'm not going to say, obviously it's not as good as Kaguya-sama, but it doesn't have the ensemble at the moment. Although, apparently as a joke, Kirito from Sword Art Online shows up at some point.
Sure.
Great.
But, yeah, it's like, it's very much the, like, contentious dirtbag comedy that I very much like.
Right.
Once they settle into what's going on here.
I just see this and I think, how many episodes before the girl gets, like, sexually assaulted?
Right.
Well, I don't think they're gonna go that far.
I mean, just like she gets like, manhandled and accosted by like delinquents and stuff like
anime,
that.
Quote unquote funny, groped by whatever. Right. Yeah, that could probably happen.
Oh no, it's a big scary orc.
It's very.
But it's funny because it's actually a guy.
Yeah, I don't know if they will. And I'm probably gonna eat those words. But based on just like the first episode alone, I enjoyed it.
I mean, so it sounds like, regardless of like whatever like trepidations one might have, that like unlike a lot of the trash that is airing this season, where it's very easy to just write it off immediately, you're still making the argument that like there's some legitimately like. Yeah, that there's some legitimate like qualities to this that make it worth paying attention to.
It is it has like the good comedic timing. It's very well animated. Sure. A lot of really nice looking shows this season, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah.
This is it's extremely well animated. It's got the goofy cartoon animation stuff going on. A lot of things that I love in many other anime comedies. Just they're skating on such thin ice with the subject material that this could go south so quickly. But you know what? I'll give it another episode, and if I'm eating my words in 2 weeks, so be it. At least the first episode was pretty good, I think.
At least it was something to watch.
Yeah.
It could numb our brain for 30 minutes.
All right. Let's move on to talk about Orient.
Oh boy. Orient.
I don't really know a whole lot about this other than
Not
isn't this
much
like a
to
big
know. It's just,
Yeah, not much to say about this one, to be honest.
it's just it's the shonen manga by the mangaka who brought us Magi the Labyrinth of Magic,
Oh, okay.
which I would say I broadly like her work in manga form.
Put that asterisk on it.
So Orient is basically a fantasy version of Sengoku period where while all the warlords were fighting, Oni showed up and enslaved everybody and took over Japan. And so now they just control humans in little enclaves, and only the Bushi can band together to fight the Oni menace.
Right, but the Oni, they oppress everyone and they teach the innocent children in school that the Bushi were...
I mean,
were...
I'm going to tell you right now that that's not really a factor in the rest of the show.
I mean,
yeah.
sure, but I
Yes,
just
in
found
the
it
first
funny.
Episode, yes.
It's very funny.
Right.
It's
Like,
an extremely
Like,
there are moments
being
like
oppressed for being a
right,
Bushi.
like there's literally a scene where like a kid is like, because he's the son of a Bushi, he has to carry a sword at his hip, and the other kids throw rocks at
Right,
him.
yeah, and I'll socially ostracise him. Anyway, and so the main character and his best
it'd be
friend are gonna
yeah.
become the best Bushi ever.
I'm gonna be the greatest Bushi of all
So
time,
is
believe it!
this just an average battle shonen
Yes.
anime, or
Yes.
I would say
I-
it is precisely that.
there's going to be a
Except,
tournament arc in 20 episodes?
Except it doesn't look good at all.
No.
Anime wise.
Well, no, but here's the thing. That makes it your average.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
anime
You're right.
adaptation.
We have been spoiled these past few
Right.
years.
Like the thing that actually I started thinking about watching Orient is like whether deserve it or not.
Uh-huh.
A lot of shonen manga in the last few years have gotten these sorts of adaptations that like have such a degree of like pedigree
Prestige, yeah.
and like resources that it almost lends like a sort of like prestige quality to them, right? Like think about like I mean the example I'll bring up is like the now like or even just to bring up because it hasn't aired yet, so all we have is a trailer. Think about the Chainsaw Man anime PV.
Right.
Like that thing is like literally one of the most watched like videos on YouTube, and like I like Chainsaw Man. I like it a lot, but even still, watching that PV, it's almost like, whoa, does it really deserve this much money? like this seems a little weird, right? It's almost like this was like it's like if you had like your favorite like fucking like hole in the wall restaurant, right? And it was your hole in the wall because it was like
and then it got like a Michelin star or something,
right? Right, and it's suddenly like fucking and Gordon Ramsay's there and all this shit, and you're
I mean,
like,
when Gordon Ramsay's there, it's usually a bad sign for the restaurant.
Fine, fair
but...
enough. Then when the ghost of Andrew Bourdain shows up, or Anthony Bourdain
no, I
shows
mean
up.
Anthony Bourdain's out here repping like In and Out and fucking
Yeah,
fast food
but
shit.
the point I'm making is like, it is a thing that I undeniably like, and I like it for what I think are very valid reasons, but it still feels weird the amount of prestige and resource that is being thrown behind it, because
Right.
at the end of the day, it's still something that fucking, gets published in Weekly Shonen Jump.
Right. And
Like,
I mean, we're used to the days of our youths with like for me Dragon Ball.
Right,
and,
runs
We're all
forever.
used to the
Naruto.
horrors of Studio Pierrot.
Looks good once every 30 episodes.
Right, where they have to
yeah.
crank out 200 episodes a year, and they're of varying quality, let's say.
So like, to bring
And-
it all back, that's why in a weird ways watching Orient was like a weird like baseline reset of my expectations.
Right.
It was like, oh right, no, forget
We've
about
actually been
Jujutsu
spoiled by
Kaisen and Demon Slayer.
Right.
Like this is what your average shonen anime adaptation looks like.
Yeah. Can't really
So,
deny that. I mean,
well,
I
I'm
mean,
sure it's
also
better than-
aside from that, it just has no like style. Like, look at Naruto
yeah.
and Bleach. Those shows looked like
Right.
shit, but they had a vibe.
I
They
guess
had a
yeah,
style.
there's where like I'd argue like the manga has a vibe, but and that
Yeah.
vibe is Shinobu Otaka's style of storytelling.
Yeah.
But then like
Right.
it doesn't really come through in the anime as much.
Yeah, or like I mean, for me, like Jujutsu Kaisen, I never watched Battle Shonen, and there's just something about that show, and it is kind of like very generic early on, as we've talked about, but there's something about it that I like kind of appealed to me, and you stick with it, and eventually finds its its personality or whatever.
Yeah.
But that show also looks really good.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about when I say like the weird amount of prestige being thrown at what amount to Battle Shonen.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah,
Well,
what I'm saying is, if you did watch Orient and went, oh yeah, maybe there's something here, just read the manga. Just read the original version. Yeah. It's good.
Or rather, go read Magi.
I mean, that too.
Yeah. Remember that show. Anyway, let's move along. Did anybody else watch Tokyo 24th Ward besides me?
I did not.
Okay.
I heard it was okay.
Apologies to anyone else in the GLORIO crew that might have watched this and enjoyed it. I absolutely hated it. I'm not even really sure what the point of the show is. I guess like
Ouch. Jesus.
They're doing like they're kind of doing like this Minority Report or any others, or I guess didn't Psychopaths do this too with the we can predict crime.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, because the one thing I was about to ask about Tokyo, the 24th Ward, right, is like, did this show feel like it had the potential to be this year's like It Invaded tier anime?
No.
Of like weird pseudo near future with like a sci-fi twist? No, not even remotely. Okay.
Well, on paper, yeah, that's kind of what they're going for. In execution,
because I'm looking at the recommendations section of the 24th Ward on Anichart, and listed are Psychopaths, Vivi, It Invaded, and Akudama Drive.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's in that genre.
I mean, cyberpunk aesthetic. That is what all these shows have in common.
Yeah, yes, of course.
But yes, there's like some kind of new technology that can predict the future, and it's controversial, of course, because the government is using it to convict poor people, and our three main young men straight out of high school get a mysterious phone call from their dead friend that gives them like temporary superhuman powers and also lets them see the future in I guess
power.
I don't know, like I'll point out it was a 2-episode debut, and I did not have the desire to watch the second episode. So I don't know, maybe something better happens. Maybe something better happens in the second episode, but it was just so like uninteresting, and I absolutely hated the characters. So
the characters don't have a good dynamic, or you just don't find them interesting.
It's these three dudes.
Okay.
First of all, everyone in this everyone in the show, all the characters in the show are idiots.
Okay.
I mean, that could be a good thing, depending on.
But not in a
anime.
good way.
No.
This is not. This is a serious dramatic show. So like the three main guys, and they call themselves they're called RGB because their hair colors they have red, green, and blue hair.
Of course. Sure.
The main guy is like the idiot, I'm gonna be a hero guy.
Okay.
And he's so dumb that like so like this show opens, and like sort of like the pivotal turning point that in their lives that leads up to this was there's like this fire at a high school, and the main idiot guy who's the one with the blue hair is like, I'm gonna run in and rescue him and rescue the girls or their friends or whoever, and like so he's like the idiot, I'm gonna be a hero guy. There's the smart glasses guy, of course.
Of course.
And there's the free-spirited hacker guy.
This is just a Sentai cast.
And so like the opening scene. This is just one example of like the stupidity. But this opening scene, it's a flashback. The school's on fire. He's gonna run in, and they're like, "No, we gotta have a smart guy's like, no, we gotta have a plan." Hacker guy's like, I'm hacking the thing to find them first. Just wait 1 minute. And the guy's like, no, I'm not gonna wait, and then he knocks both of them out.
What?
And then runs into the building.
I mean, that way they can't stop him.
I mean,
And I'm like, what?
okay.
They can't stop him that way.
And so, that happens, and then of course he runs in and he can only save one of the girls, and like the other girl's death is like their big like, you know, turning point in their life that before we skip to like a year or two later or whatever. But and then like later on, the entire like second half of the episode is kind of banding them together and like giving them their first time that they get their superpowers, which is kind of like their superpowers are kind of like if they got like +5 to their ability checks.
Sure.
Dungeons and Dragons terms, like
Yes.
so like the one guy can run faster, the other guy is more charismatic, and then the super hacker guy can think faster or something.
Sure.
But
okay.
and
So they get superpowers, but not in a way that we must like consider how they have superpowers when we're writing.
yes. So well, they get it because they get like a mysterious phone call, and it's like their dead friend, and then they suddenly have superpowers. But the whole half of the episode is literally the trolley problem.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
To the degree where one of the characters says, "This is just like the trolley problem."
Oh my god.
Kotaro Shikashi, is that you?
so,
Let me
so,
tell
like-
you about the Monty Hall problem.
so like, and it's caused by their one of their friends is like currently working as like a waitress somewhere, and she's at
At
the
a
train
cocktail
platform,
bar.
and her dog gets loose and runs onto the tracks of this new bullet train, and she decides to jump down and chase the dog on the
Oh,
tracks to
man.
the bullet train.
Uh-huh.
And this goes on for like 20 minutes, and the whole time I'm just yelling at my screen at how like dumb it was for her to jump down there. This whole thing would have been prevented. And also like it's so like they think they're so smart bringing up the trolley problem thing.
Oh no.
And
It's,
I'm like,
it's the anime. It's the anime that thinks it's smart.
yes, and I'm like, yes, I've never heard of this trolley problem. Please explain to me. And like, well, you see,
Oh man.
you know, do you sacrifice the life of this one young woman to save the 150 people on the train, or you know? And they're like fighting back and forth between, no, don't switch the tracks, you know, we'll think of some other way to stop the train, and none of it probably would have been fine if this was like a 5-minute sequence, but this is like 20 minutes that they drag this out, and I'm like just
Yeesh.
banging my head against the monitor, and I'm like, if this anime thinks this is like smart philosophical, like I don't know, whatever, then I have no desire to watch this.
So
And
deep,
then
man.
the characters are like super boring, they don't and annoying, and there's just like nothing I was enjoying there. So I'm just like, yeah, could have been good. I mean, like it I think it has like a certain like style to it that I like, but like if you look at the the artwork and everything, like I mean that's part of why I was like, okay, that looks like it might be interesting. And I think if it were well written and the characters were better, then maybe it would be good. But that's a big that's a big
If
You know, I
anime-
would have loved the show if it were good.
If this anime was good instead of bad, it would have been good.
yes. All right.
Christ.
Well, I'm glad I got that rant off my chest because
That's a shame. I feel like I feel like I have a soft spot for these types of shows that are like
Dumb cyberpunk.
but smart, but also
Oh,
dumb.
crap.
yeah.
Like I don't
This-
know how to quite put it right. It's like I don't want to call It Invaded a smart show, but it's also not a dumb show. It's using its smart writing to do dumb things, and
Right.
I think I just have a soft spot for an anime that can do that. So
A show that is
Always-
dumb on purpose rather than accidentally dumb, you mean?
yes, it is.
Double
It is.
decker.
It is. Yes, an anime that is intelligently designed to be dumb on purpose.
Yes.
is maybe the best way I could put it.
And
So
that is-
it is a shame when you get the opposite, which is a dumb show that thinks it's smart.
I'm half expecting to pull out like Schrodinger's cat in the next episode or something.
Oh,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
if they're
Oh.
fucking, dude, if they're carting out the fucking trolley problem episode 1, I guarantee you, Prisoner's Dilemma
heard
will
about
be
Prisoner's
in
Dilemma,
episode
yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Like,
Pull them all out.
Ambidex edition.
All right.
they will probably name drop the Chinese room sometime
man.
down the line too.
Yeah. Well,
have you ever heard of game theory?
let's end the new shows with one more rant against the thing I absolutely hated.
There's still one more on this
Sucks.
list. I totally forgot.
Let's talk about Love of Kill.
So bad.
What is
I
this one?
absolutely hated this.
It's okay.
I might have hated this more than anything I watched.
All right. So the premise of the
Damn.
show is there's a lady who's a bounty hunter, and she's you know
Wait, one thing, Iro.
her name is.
I need to say
Chateau.
that this.
Right.
Yes, this woman's name is Chateau Dankworth.
Dude, that's a great name. Holy
Well, so
shit.
I'll give him credit that's fantastic.
That's a Blood
Chateau
Pocket
Dankworth?
Battlefront name.
Yeah, dude, I'm writing that one down.
Chateau
Chateau,
Dankworth. She's a
Chateau
bounty
Dankworth,
hunter.
number 11 of the Gung Ho
Yep.
Guns.
She's a bounty hunter. She's hunting down criminals in the modern day.
Okay.
But then one day
She looks exactly like Violet Evergarden. but-
One day she finds a criminal, but a hitman's already gone to him first. And the hitman, kicks the gun out of her hand, pins her to the ground. Then he's like, "Actually, you're really hot. Can you give me your phone number?" And so the whole premise of the show is this hitman thinks she's super hot, and so he keeps doing her jobs before she gets there. He's basically stalking her.
Oh, so it's the one joke kind of comedy.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is not really a joke though.
Right.
Like,
The thing is, it's not played as a joke at all. But
I-
it's not
it's
played.
hard- it was hard for me
It's
to-
not played seriously either. It's like
I think it's supposed to be like cool and sexy.
right. It's totally supposed to be the like almost abusive, creepy boyfriend thing.
Right.
Right.
Instead, he
of
actually is
course.
just like straight up like stalking and harassing her.
Yeah. And then she gets the orders to go for his bounty. When he's like, "Well, maybe I'll let you take me in if you go on a date with me." And that's the show. That's the show. That's all there is. They have zero chemistry.
So it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be like the cat and mouse sexy spy thriller.
Right.
Thing.
right, but there's nothing to
And-
it. They have no chemistry
The
at all.
problem is that if you do the cat and mouse sexy spy thriller thing, is that the cat and the mouse both need to have chemistry.
Exactly.
Yes. There has to be some and so the main guy is a creepy stalker, and the woman doesn't talk.
Barely talks.
Oh, she's like
no, she
silent?
Pretty much doesn't talk.
no, she's just
Other than,
quiet,
bare- other than bare necessity of dialogue to function as a human being, she doesn't talk. So
yeah, it's
real
just-
hot. And yeah, I just absolutely hated this so much. The fact that there's a lot to I could probably unpack with the sexism and stuff going on here, which is not even worth our time. But
What about the casual racism?
Oh boy.
yeah, there's
Wait, what?
some of that too.
You see, so in her bounty hunter office, they have an IT intern, whose name is given in the anime as Jim, and he's a
Okay.
small little brown guy who works
Okay.
IT. And I looked this up because I was like, what the heck is Jim's deal? In the manga version, he was known only as the Indian.
Oh.
And he
Oh.
speaks in a comical accent.
Oh.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
Oh,
So there's
boy.
that. Yeah, I really don't like the. I was trying to think I guess just the power dynamic, because
Right.
the main assassin guy is clearly in control physically. He's always grabbing her and pinning her, and he's very much she can't she tries to fight him off at one
Right,
point
but
and
he's
she
just
can't.
too strong.
He's too good.
But he's
Yeah, that's
but
lame.
he's being respectful because he isn't pinning her
No,
down. He's
that's
just gently caressing her face.
Yeah,
Nah,
he's only
nah,
looking
this-
respectfully, right?
This
But,
sucks. This sounds like it sucks.
again, if you're gonna do the sexy cat and mouse spy thriller thing, they have to be equals, right?
Right, you're Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
You're,
Yeah.
One
we are
has to
literally
be
going
a spy for the West, the other one has to be an assassin for the East.
Right, we
They
are
have to get
literally gonna
fake married and adopt a
Yeah.
stupid daughter.
We're literally gonna watch an anime that does this way better in 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
So
6'9", nice.
Yes.
It's late.
So anyway,
Yeah.
honestly, with all the bad shows on this, for some reason that one seemed to piss me off more than any of them. But
Just to no energy to it at all.
yeah,
the story of winter 2022.
Well. On that note, that's gonna do it for the new shows.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention we're kind of out of time, but at least we have Ranking of Kings.
Yeah,
so
that new OP is really good. Holy shit.
Let me say again on tape while you're here, Aqua, thank you for introducing us to Ranking of Kings, because it's really, really good.
Yeah.
This second half, now that we've introduced like this gang of horrible criminals that
these
they're different.
These like comical bandits and also a guy from Dark Souls.
Yes.
Dorsch is still the GOAT.
Yep. Still the greatest that ever
again
lived.
after last episode.
I can't believe Dorsch fake died for a second time.
Has it only been 2 times that he's fake died?
I do have to point out that these hellhounds are getting some serious like Dalek rule, in that one hellhound is a formidable opponent, but like many hellhounds go down very easily.
You can kill them with some darts.
Yeah.
No,
you are not immune to Hot Lady Night. Not even the Ranking of Kings is immune to Hot Lady Night.
Ninja Lady Night.
Like,
yeah, like freaking this lady who's wearing full plate armor but also throwing kunai like a ninja.
Highly optimized build.
Just the silliest goddamn combo I've ever seen.
I mean, we have established that the Knights of the Kingdom of Boss were like a very weird, like sort of like
whack jobs.
Like a torso armor that is like really wide around the waist, and then they wear these poofy trousers.
Yeah.
But when Healing wears them, she just wears the torso bit, so she's just like walking around like she's dressed up as a Christmas tree.
It's very good. Yeah, no, I mean that anime, like, what is there to say? It continues to like be really great. I think that maybe these recent episodes have definitely felt a little bit like a resting period, right? It feels like Wit Studio is resting its energy, is saving its energy. Like it knows it's gonna go fucking crazy soon. So.
Yeah,
but
I mean the latest episode did have like a lot of combat in it, but
it did.
It was not as extravagant as
it wasn't as
you compare Dorsch's first fight to his second fight, and the first fight clearly had a lot more time put into it.
It looked good as it looked merely good as opposed to great.
Yes, it still looks good. I just think it's a great escalation of things, shaking up the status quo in a way that's like kind of cashing in all the build-up that we've had.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just continue to like have like nothing bad to say about the show. Like it's just so good.
It is very noteworthy, because the weird thing about Ranking of Kings is like every time you watch it, it's very good, but it is also incredibly simple. Like it tells a relatively simple story, but it sprawls in such a way because everything has been thought out. Like there's little twist and little kink here and there, even though the core is like a very simple story of the black sheep prince gets kicked out, goes on a journey, and comes back to reclaim his throne. Like that's the story.
I think there's complexity with the characters.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like but it tells this traditional fairy tale like story in a way that, as opposed to like using the broad, like all of your traditional characteristics of a fairy tale, your broad flat characters, your black and white worldview, and then goes over all of these elements of like, okay, what if I made it interesting, but I still kept telling the same story, and that's interesting. Like,
to the character.
Yeah, what if I fleshed out the characters? What if not everyone was either 100% good or 100% evil, except for Bodji, who's a good boy. But like, it's an interesting show to look at from like a way of like comparing, as someone who has been like beaten to death with like story structure and the typical characteristics of a fairy tale in high school. It's a very interesting show to look at. Like,
it's very good.
Great stuff.
And as G mentioned, that new OP is like a work of art in itself.
Yeah, like it's a thing. Like you didn't even have to be like, I knew about it ahead of time, but you didn't need to be told, oh, the new OP for Ranking of Kings was handled by the Jujutsu Kaisen guy, because the moment you watch it, you're like, oh,
right, it's that's
guy, the Jujutsu Kaisen guy.
I feel like I feel like that that OP stirred up more emotion in me than like anything I've watched in the past 6 months or something. Like
It's a really good OP.
Do have to
Also,
say, I'm going to miss that crazy 70s synth guitar solo from the first OP.
fair
yeah,
enough.
well,
I mean,
we'll always
it's
have
the
that
thing,
one
like,
as well.
Like in a ways, like the second OP could only be the second OP because it is an opening sequence that works. Because now that you know what the true shape of this show is,
Right.
Yeah,
it can have an OP. Like you could not have that OP for the first, right?
Mhm.
Because like there's an element of Requiem of Kings that is about the facade, right? And the first OP is very good at like maintaining that facade until eventually the curtains come down and you realize what kind of show this truly is. But
yeah.
To add to that,
I wouldn't.
it's interesting
I
that
wouldn't
they...
be getting. I wouldn't be getting choked up when I see the queen hugging Boji in the OP, and if that was in the first season, yeah.
exactly. And again, shout outs to the OP for correctly recognizing that the only relationship that can rival a mother's love is a man's love for his three-headed, now two-headed snake.
Yes. He's included. I love that that's included in the montage.
The
Of,
montage.
Now that we did end up discussing this episode, and you were talking about, like averting expectations, I do like how the show like did the facade twice. Like, because with this episode you had the like, the show has always had the thing of like, it looks like a kids show, but it's actually dark. And then you had this episode coming around, and at some point I was really like, they're just going to go like full Red Wedding here. Like, Darsh is gonna get slaughtered, the Queen is gonna get slaughtered, but they still all make it out in the end.
I
So
would
they
argue
even-
the tone of the show is not like that dark.
That's the thing. They keep it well balanced. They
Yeah.
always play with your exception. When you think this is just a cheerful show, you get like complex, mature depth to it. And then when you think the pendulum's going to swing too hard in the other direction, it goes back to being a bit more idealistic, a bit more
yeah.
optimistic.
I mean, there are
So-
some very dark things that happen.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
not,
But they always keep that pendulum
Yeah.
like nicely between its boundaries.
It's very they balance that well. Yeah, I'm just thinking of like even the concept of like King Boss and like when he makes his deal with the devil, and they're like,
Also,
"Oh,
King
you would have to have a
Waluigi is gonna
son."
invade them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have to do like a play-by-play of every plot point,
Yeah,
but I
sure.
will say that like I think that you guys are getting at is like the show has an is immensely like good at like crafting these sorts of like emotional situations because it economically uses its time very well to develop these characters, right? Like even like was it like Kingbo, the fucking dude who gets got in the first episode,
yeah,
like gets his flashback to like how he used to be a good and kind king until his dad went fucking cuckoo from becoming the #1 ranked king.
Also, he's not
And,
dead.
like,
He's not dead.
Also that he's not
Yeah.
dead, or like how in in the second episode of this new core, right? They finally reveal the identity of Oken as Prince Oken,
Right.
And we don't know the relationship quite yet, but now that we know that he's directly related to King Waluigi,
Yeah, they just
it's
sort of
like-
casually do it. Like they start calling him Prince, and it was like,
right?
has he always been
It's
a
like,
prince?
oh man,
Show
Like-
is
now
really good at
now
that.
suddenly why King Waluigi sheds a single tear in the OP makes sense, right? Like, is he summoning that lightning? Like, yes, on one hand he's here to invade, his premise is he's here to invade Boss's kingdom, but is it actually the true tragedy here is that King Waluigi is traveling to perform a mercy killing of his like cursed long gone like is Prince Oken his cursed son? Like, do we have two cursed sons in this anime?
a lot of
Like-
cursed sons
Oh, man.
Like,
going around.
You
It's so
don't
good.
get to climb the ranking of kings without cursing a couple sons.
And again, like we're making these wild speculations. Like none of this would surprise me. We have
Right,
no idea
so-
what's going to happen.
Yeah.
no, yeah, we could be entirely wrong here. Yes.
We have no idea what's going to happen, and that is so rare in anime these days. All right.
All right.
Well,
Good show.
I thought it was
Couldn't
worth
stop
going a little
herself.
over time just to end on a good note and on a positive note. As for what we're going to talk about next episode, who knows? We'll see. So
Might have to dig into the old backlog again.
yeah,
You
tune in to find out on
yes.
that one.
Get more of that
All right.
in-depth coverage of 5-minute shorts directed by some guys at Trigger. who got high on a bunch of drugs.
Oh, I thought they finished Ninja Slayer.
You guys should
All
watch
right.
Sterling Girls.
Yeah. Although Ninja Slayer is like 12 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
on
we
average.
gotta can't get into Ninja Slayer, so let's wrap this up. All right. So to do our housekeeping, you can check us out at theglorioblog.com. You can see where we wrote about all these shows and several others that the rest of the crew watched. So please go check that out. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that fun stuff. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time.